Okay, we're going to start in a couple of minutes. We're getting ready to start a new class, which is a class in Perkia Avot, in Ethics of Our Fathers. If you have a Siddur, you can find it usually in the Chabad Siddur. It's on the after Mincha of Shabbos. You can find the Perkia Avot, because that's usually when we say Perkia Avot. So, and if you have a Chabad Siddur, you can find it on page 271. 271, your Chabad Siddur. If you go on to Zoom, I can put the link. I'm gonna over there. You can find it right over there. You can find the Perkia Avot. You can follow it with us in Perkia Avot, in Ethics of Our Fathers. So, in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, in the Alter Rebbe's Code of Jewish Law, he says that it's a minhag, it's a custom to learn Perkia Avot, to learn Ethics of Our Fathers. This on every Shabbos between Pesach Latzeres, between Pesach and Shavuos, that we should learn after the Shabbos, after Pesach, which was this Shabbos, we should learn Perkia Avot. We should learn Ethics of Our Father. And the 1 second. We should learn Perkia Avot. We should learn the Ethics of Our Fathers. So that means this Shabbos was the first Perek, and by Shavuos will be finished all the Parakim, all the 5 chapters that we do in Perkia Avot. There's 6 chapters of Perkia Avot. There are 6 chapters. So it's the 6 Shabbosim before Shavuos. So every Shabbos we learn another chapter. The Alter Rebbe then continues and says that there are those who do it till Rosh Hashanah, till the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. We do it through the entire summer. We do Perkia Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. The Rebbe would always say Perkia Avot is called Milsa de Chasidusa. It's called the concepts of Chasidus, means they are concepts that go beyond the letter of law. They are ethics, they are morals. Shana Shulchan Aruch, it was not written for the aspect of the law. Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jewish Law. These were the statements of the Chazal, the sages throughout history, that they expressed how a Jew must show something even higher than that. He has to have moral and ethics. He has to have Kedusha. He has to have the aspect of holiness. And therefore, it's important as we go into the summer, where it gets warmer outside and it gets a little bit more laxy, and we don't work, sometimes we finish schools and we go on vacations, and sometimes it gets a little bit, start to forget about our ethics and our morals. Therefore, it's a good time to learn about what the rabbi said about ethical and moral way of life. When we live an ethical and moral way of life, we live automatically a happier life, because we live our life in a certain kind of a level, on a certain kind of a standard that expresses the beauty of our life. So the truth is, by learning Milsa de Chasidusa, that means that for a Jew to go into his Chasidut, into his piety, and to reveal his piety, especially in these days, as we come to Matan Torah, which our sages tell us, Vayichan Yisrael ki ish echad belev echad. To be able to receive the Torah, we have to fix our midas. We have to fix our character. So if we don't have good character, the character is the vessel of our Torah. Our Torah, if you take a beautiful Torah, if you take a beautiful concept and you put it into a filthy vessel, then the expression of the Torah is going to be filthy. It will come out corrupt. Therefore, that's the simple reason why we learn between Pesach and Shavuos, because Pesach is going out of Mitzrayim, and Shavuos is to receive the Torah. To receive the Torah, to receive the Torah in like one person, one entity, one soul, one body, one nation, then we need to work on our midas, and that's why we have 7 weeks to work on the 7 midas to become better people. And that's why it's important that we all learn Perkia Avot, to what the sages, not only they taught us halachas, they taught us law and how to live the Torah by the law, what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. But the Torah taught us also how to live this ethical law, how to be a mensch, how to be a chassid, how to be pious. And the question you might ask, how is it possible for us to ask us to be pious? How is it possible for us to ask us to be pious? You want us to be, it's enough that we're being normal. You want us to be pious, we should go above the letter of law. That's why the Mishnah starts off, before we say any of the first 6 Mishnahs of Perkia Avot, first 6 chapters, we say a statement. Kol Yisrael, every Jew, yesh lam chelek lo'ilam haba. Every single Jew has a part in the world to come. Every Jew has a part in the world to come. Here the Mishnah starts off, this statement is not a statement of Perkia Avot. This is actually a statement in Masechta Sanhedrin. The Gemara says, it's a Mishnah in Masechta Sanhedrin, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. It says, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek lo'ilam haba. Every single Jew has a part in the world to come. That means that it's attainable for every single one of us. No Jew can say, you know what, I cannot attain godliness. I cannot attain purity. I cannot attain to be a chassid. No, that's not true. Kol Yisrael. Every Jew can attain it. So therefore, don't opt out, because you can attain it. But then the Mishnah says, Kol Yisrael yesham chelek lo'ilam haba. This statement of oilam haba alone is we know there's a machlekes between my 2 great sages, Nachmanides and Maimonides. What's the meaning of oilam haba? Whether it means Gan Eden, souls without bodies. But everybody agrees, even the Rambam, who says it means souls without bodies, and the Ramban, Nachmanides, says it means souls with bodies. After Mashiach comes, there's going to be Olam Haba. The world to come is after the Messianic coming of the Messiah, which will be a time of Olam Haba, the world to come. This, everybody agrees, even the Rambam agrees, that this pasuk, this statement goes on the world to come, Olam Haba, after Mashiach comes. Kol Yisrael yesham chelek lo'ilam haba. Every single one of us has a part in Olam Haba. Doesn't make a difference what you are, who you are. You have a part in Olam Haba, in the world to come. You have a chelek. As you're going to learn later, you'll hang in with me. Take us a couple weeks to reach it. There are certain guys who have to do certain things to take away their chelek lo'ilam haba. You have to do certain things, as the Mishnah will say, that there's certain people. Every rule has an exception. So even this rule that every person has a part in the world to come also has its exception. But every Jew has a part in the world to come. Shenema, as a verse says, "Va'amech kulam tzadikim." Your people are all righteous. Everybody's righteous. We're all righteous. That means that even if we might have to go, after 120 years, we'll have to go to Gehenna, we'll have to go through Gehenna, hell, so to say, what I want to call it. But ultimately, that will bring you to Gan Eden. And ultimately, you're going to merit Tchias HaMesim. And you'll merit the world to come. It's very difficult for a Jew not to merit the world to come, in essence. That's what the Mishnah says. It's very difficult. There's always exception to the rule, but it's, as you'll learn later, it's extremely difficult to get yourself out of this, to so to say, disqualify yourself from the world to come. Call yourself. La'ilam Yishuaretz. They will inherit the land forever. And the meaning of the land is Olam Haba. They will inherit that land. Neitza my toyim, I say, they are a branch of my planting. The Rebbe says, I put them in this world. They are created by me. They have, or as Chassidus says, they have a godly soul within them. And therefore, Maise Yadai Lispar, the work of my hands, which I take pride. So God says, I take pride in the work of mine. I take pride in my creation. Even if my creation is not perfect, I take pride in that creation. Because I know that there are Malay mitzvahs kirim, as a Mishnah will tell us later, that Malay mitzvahs kirim, that Jews are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. That's one of the reasons why eat on Rosh Hashanah pomegranate. So, because we symbolize that even though we are all not perfect, and we might all do sins, comes the Mishnah and tells us, listen, your avodah is to be better. There's no excuses that you're sinning. We need all work on not stopping to sin. We need all work on becoming better. But, nevertheless, everybody will merit to the world to come. Everybody will merit to Tchias HaMesim. And why? Because every one of us has done good deeds. And those good deeds need to be rewarded. And as Chassidus explains, that the Kabbalah Schar HaMitzvahs, the receiving of the reward for a mitzvah, is in Olam Haba, is in the world to come. That means, Chassidus explains that what's Gan Eden, what's the reward of Gan Eden, paradise, above, souls without bodies, is the reward of learning Torah. And that's why over there, whatever you can learn in this world, you should learn. Because as the Gemara, Talmud says, Ashrei Misha Balakan, praise it as a person that comes to heaven after 120 years, but Talmudah biyadai, and the learning that he has learned is in his hand. Because then you take your learning to a whole different level. So too, you receive your rewards. We receive the rewards of mitzvahs in the world to come. And Amir Shem will receive great rewards. We'll see the greatness of the mitzvah. Right now we might do a mitzvah and we don't see the greatness in the mitzvah. We see some of us might see the burden in the mitzvah, the obligation in the mitzvah. So we do the mitzvah because we're told to do the mitzvah. But we'll merit to see Amir Hashem when Mashiach comes. And we will all merit to the coming of Mashiach, and we will all merit to Tchias HaMesim. Then we will receive the rewards of our mitzvahs. So since we are all Malayim mitzvahs kirimin, we are all full of mitzvahs, like a pomegranate. That's why we will all merit to Tchias HaMesim. We'll all merit to the resurrection of the dead. So the question is, why do I need to do anything right now? Because just like in Gan Eden, the more I learn now, the more I have a greater, deeper comprehension in Gan Eden. So too, the more I do now, the more I understand and I do today in Galus, the more I will receive in the world to come. Because the time the world to come happens, the Avodah is done, and now is a time to go in a higher level and receive the rewards of our action. So I need to do as much mitzvah as I can do today. As the Gemara says, mitzvah bala yadcha al tachmitzana. A mitzvah that comes to your hand, don't push it away. We should do every mitzvah we can. Every mitzvah we can. We shouldn't, there's the Yiddish expression, zhalva, don't zhalva on a mitzvah. Don't be cheap on a mitzvah. Whether you want to do it, whether you don't want to do it, you comprehend it, you don't comprehend it, do a mitzvah. Never say no to a mitzvah. You should never ever say no to it. You should do every mitzvah you could do. That you can do. You never know that when somebody asks you for a mitzvah, somebody asks you for a favor, you never know that might be the mitzvah, that might be the tipping point of your existence, of Klal Yisrael's existence. You never know. You never know. As the Baal Shem Tov said, that a Yid, a Neshama, could come here Lamata and travel the world for 70, 80 years, just to do a favor for another. So that's a very important statement that we say every time that we start to learn ethics of our father, Perkia Avot, which we call Perkia Avot, the teachings of the sages. So here we start off, no sound? No sound where? No sound, you cannot hear me? You cannot hear me? Why there's no sound? Hello? Do you hear me? Nobody hears me? Am I talking to the walls? Yachavi, do you hear me? Ay vey. There's no sound. No sound where? Okay, you're not answering me. We hear you. Okay, thank you. I was getting nervous. Okay. Okay, so let's go weiter. So the Mishnah says, so here we start the first Mishnah. Here we start the first Mishnah in ethics of our fathers. Moshe Kibel Teira Mishnah. The Mishnah starts off. The Mishnah, in essence, the first Mishnah in the Perkia Avot wants to give us a general understanding of where we're heading and what is the basis of this whole teaching. So the Mishnah gives us a history, a little bit of a history test. So I Googled, and you can Google this too. I'll just give you a short synopsis. So, in short, I Googled this, and so it's Chabad.org. I don't know exactly where in Chabad.org. So, 1800 BCE, you have in the 1800s BCE is Sarah, Abraham, and Sarah begin their journey Lech Lecha. In 1250 BCE, Moshe leaves the Hebrews out of bondage. 1000 BCE, King David unites the kingdom. He becomes the king. In 950 BCE, King Solomon builds the Beis Hamikdash. In 722 BCE, the Assyrians destroy the northern kingdom, send away the 10 tribes. In 586 BCE, again, if you look up these numbers, you'll see there's a discrepancy in different places of these numbers. 586 BC was a destruction of the first temple. In 428 BCE, with the second temple was 428. The second temple was rebuilt by Ezra and Nehemiah. In 164 BCE, the Chashmonaim wrote the story of Hanukkah happened. In 70, the second temple was destroyed. 70 Common Era, the second temple was destroyed. In the 200 Common Era, the Mishnah was codified, the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, which actually starts in the second chapter of this Perkia Avot, Rabbi Yomer. And in around 500 CE, the Common Era, is when the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, was codified. And we can go on, in dates of history. So you have the historical events of what happened from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, for sure, until the time of the destruction of the second temple, and ultimately the codifying and the writing of the Mishnah and of the Gemara. So if you go to the Mishnah, Gemara's 500 Common Era. So it was like, we're holding year 2020, so it's like 1,500 years ago. So we have 1,500 years of since the ending of the Gemara. If you look at the Rambam, Maimonides, he will give you a list of teacher to student and student that became a teacher, and so on, teaches to 2 different generations, 40 generations, he counts, from Moshe Rabbeinu until Ravina and Ravashi, the 2 sages who put together the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud that we know today, that we read, that we learn today in the Art Scroll Talmud. So we know the history of thousands of years from Moshe Rabbeinu, from when Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah to the Jews till he gave it to Yeshua, because we're going to knock through over here in this Mishnah from Moshe Rabbeinu until the Mishnah, which is 188 to 200 Common Era. So Moshe Rabbeinu, it starts off the Mishnah starts with Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Sinai. He received the Torah from Mount Sinai. The Eibush gave him the Torah at Sinai. Yeshua, and he gave it over to Joshua. Joshua was the next leader of the Jewish nation that took the Jews into Eretz Yisrael. The Yeshua is a Canaan, and Yeshua gave it over to the Zakanim, the elders, and the elders, which was a time of most of us know that time was the time of the judges, with the Zakanim and the Nevi'im, and after the end of Eli, which was the end of the time of the judges and the end of the time of the elders, came the time of the prophets. And that was like 930 before Common Era, and they lasted through 313 in Common Era, before Common Era. And the prophets, they gave it over to the rabbis of the Great Assembly. The rabbis of the Great Assembly, they were in the times of the Second Temple, in the times when the Yidden, before the times of the Second Temple and into the times of the Second Temple, when the Yidden came back to Eretz Yisrael after the 70 years, and they rebuilt the temple with Ezra. One of the great sages that were in the Anshe Knesset Agdela was Mordechai. Mordechai was one of the sages of the Anshe Knesset Agdela. He was part of the 120 sages of the Anshe Knesset Agdela. That's what they say, that the Knesset, Lahavdil, the Knesset in Eretz Yisrael is 120 people. And they call it the Knesset. Anshe Knesset Agdela had 120 rabbis. And these 120 rabbis, they were in the time of the Second Temple, which at that time, even though there was a Second Temple, they were still under the Romans. And first under the Persians, then under the Romans. And ultimately, they understood that this was not going to last either forever, and they enacted many things. The Anshe Knesset Agdela enacted many things that we do in our shuls, the concept of synagogues and prayer and Kaddish, and the many things that we do was enacted by the Anshe Knesset, the rabbis of the Great Assembly. So the Rebbe, the Rebbe's interpretation on this Mishnah, beautiful interpretation, and he says that why does the Mishnah pick out these five things? Because the Mishnah is telling us, how do we acquire the concept of knowledge? How do we acquire this knowledge? Because we can have the Eibush to reveal the Torah, you reveal the godliness in the world. The question is, how do we create a vessel that I become a vessel to this knowledge? Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. Moshe received the Torah and he gave it over. He gave it over to Joshua, which gave it over to the next generation, which gave it over to the next generation. So how do we become receivers? How do we become receptacles to be able to receive such an unbelievable knowledge? How do we acquire that? So we have the Rebbe says we have 5 steps to be able to acquire this. And the first step is Moshe Rabbeinu. The first step of receiving the Torah is Moshe. What's the step of Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe was anivus. Moshe was a concept of bittul, humility. Moshe Rabbeinu, with his greatness, was his humility. To learn the first step of knowledge, to acquire knowledge, you have to have bittul. You have to have the concept of humility. I have to come with an empty vessel. If I come to a class, if I come to learn Torah with my own full vessel, I have already preconceived notions. I've already decided what I want to learn. I've already decided what I want to get for the subject. Then I cannot receive. Moshe Rabbeinu was bottled to Meibushin. Moshe Rabbeinu was nullified to God. Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble person. So the first thing is you need to have the concept of bittul. The next thing is you need Yeshua. The greatness of Yeshua was his devotion to Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeshua, it says that Yeshua didn't move away from Moshe Rabbeinu. To be able to receive knowledge, you have to have devotion, the Rebbe says. You need to be devoted to the subject. Just to have bittul is not going to be enough. You need to get to the next level. And that is the preparation. So the two concepts of learning is, first of all, humility. I'm coming to learn from the Torah. I'm coming to learn something. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm not here to become a receiver, as Moshe Rabbeinu was. Moshe Kibel, he was the ultimate receiver. He was there to listen. It's the trick of listening, to be able to listen, not to listen for the sake of arguing or for the sake of proving it right or wrong. To listen, bittul, humility. Then you need to be devoted to it. You need to be devoted to it. You need to give yourself over to the subject. And then you go to the next level, which is zikanim. You have to acquire it. The Rebbe says, who's called a zaken in the Torah? Who is somebody who's a zaken? A zaken doesn't mean an old person. The Gemara says a zaken means somebody who acquires a Torah. He acquires it. That's the concept. In Chassidus explains the concept of das, to acquire it. Chachma, bina, wisdom and understanding, and they have to have das. It needs to be acquired. It has to become mine. And that's the next level. So I need to learn with the devotion, lilmaid, ulalamed, lishmar, velasais. I'm learning it to acquire the knowledge. That's zikanim. And then you have Nevi'im. Nevi'im were prophets. What was the concept of their prophecy? The concept of prophets, they were obligated to uplift the Jewish people. They had their avodah. There was a difference between a prophet and a Talmud Chacham. If you had a prophet that went against the Torah, then he's not a prophet. Even though he prophesies, the Torah says itself. If you have a prophet that says you should do something against the Torah, he's not a prophet. He can't go against Moshe Rabbeinu. What was the concept of prophet? The concept of prophet was to uplift the Jewish nation. Not to only teach them, but to prophesy to them, to show them the future. To show them that the beauty of the learning of Torah, to show them that the learning of Torah is not just to do and not to do, that it will bring them greatness. And chas v'shalom, if they would do the opposite, it would bring them, not that they would just do a sin and something, happen spiritually up there. No, it would actually affect them negatively here lamata, in this world. So the concept of good, the prophet was there to uplift them and to give them an awareness, that Rebbe says, in the concept of the Torah. Not only that it becomes theirs, but there's an awareness. They understand the good and the bad. They understand that they see the godliness in it. They see the beauty in the Torah. And that's the next level. But the ultimate level is the Anshe Knesset Agdela, the rabbis of the Great Assembly. Because the rabbis of the Great Assembly understood that darkness is coming to the world. Even though the temple was built, and there was a second temple, but there was already missing, as we know, in the time of the second temple, there was already missing, things that were in the first temple. There was missing the Aron. There was missing the Ark, which didn't have the tablets, 2 tablets, 10 commandments. There was missing the Urim v'Tumim. There was missing that breastplate, not the breastplate, but there was missing the nevuah, the prophecy of the breastplate. There was missing things in the second temple. So they realized that the holiness is not revealed as it was in the first temple, and there's going to chas v'shalom come a time of even greater darkness, and therefore they started to enact laws and to create concepts that Jews would be able to realize that Yiddishkeit is not going to be only in the temple. That godliness is not going to be only in the temple, but it's going to be in other places. It'll be actually in synagogues. It'll be in their home. It will be in the way they do the day-to-day life. They need to start realizing that it's not a central place, so to say, the Beis Hamikdash, but actually they need to create in the world other entities, and that's what they did. So that's what the Gemara says, that when the Goyim, the Romans thought they would destroy the Beis Hamikdash, they would bring an end to Yiddishkeit, but they didn't realize that by the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, they created millions of holy temples, because Jews created millions of synagogues throughout history. So they created millions of temples. If they wouldn't have destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, we would still be going to one Beis Hamikdash. But they realized, but they didn't realize that by the destruction of this temple, they're going to create hundreds of Beit HaMikdashim, thousands of millions of Beit HaMikdashim from the time of the destruction of the second temple until today. And that was the accomplishment of the Anshe Knesset Agdela, of the rabbis of the Great Assembly. So it's not enough that Rebbe says to have these four levels. We have to have the Anshe Knesset Agdela. We have to bring it into a reality. We have to show that Yiddishkeit, Torah, mitzvahs is in every facet of our life, and it comes down into, doesn't make a difference whether we're a doctor, lawyer, rabbi, or accountant, or plumber. It doesn't make a difference. We can bring Judaism, and we can live as holy, godly individuals in any kind of situation that we are. And that was the greatness of the Anshe Knesset Agdela, and that is the fifth level that Rebbe says in the teaching. But they said, hey, Mamru, Shloisha Dvarim. They said three things. They said many things, these great sages, but they said three principles of how to live in this world, how to live in a dark world, how to live in a world of darkness, in a world of non-revelation, in a world where the Gemara says that when you came to the temple, you saw 10 miracles every day. Right? Can you imagine if you had any doubts, you had any struggles in life, went to the temple. Went to the Beis Hamikdash. You came to the temple, you saw the 10 miracles, it answered all your questions. And you went home and you didn't have any doubts. You started to struggle again, you went to the temple. You saw again 10 miracles. It automatically, now there's no more, you're not going to see miracles. There's no miracles. Destruction of the temple. We're going to be in a gullus, we're going to be in exile. What is going to be the foundation? We're not going to see. We're not going to see these miracles. We're not going to have this connection. We're not going to have this revelation. So they said, hey, they said that there are three things that need to be done. Three things. Have a Mesuna Bedin, that a person should be very patient in judgment. That's going to be the problem. As we come into a world of darkness, judgmentalness is going to come even more in reality. We're going to start becoming more judgmental, because more it gets dark in the world, the more we become judgmental. And therefore, stop that. Be very, very patient. Be patient in your judgments of others. Be patient. As this was a statement that Rebbe says. It means to simply judges, or even to Rabbanim, rabbis and teachers. As a generation gets darker, it goes further away from the Beis Hamikdash. You need to be more patient. You need to be more patient. We need to have patience with other people. If we're going to be judgmental, we're not going to accomplish things. We're going to push away people. We're going to do the opposite. It's not going to gain anything. Something's not going to happen that's going to create something that's going to make it better. We need to be patient. Have patience. V'hemidu talmidim harbe. V'hemidu. And raise many disciples. And the Rebbe says, listen to the three words. Raise many disciples. Raise means to raise them. If you're going to have a disciple, raise him. Make him feel good. Uplift your disciples. Be uplifting to people. You want people to get involved in Yiddishkeit. You want people to be better. Tell them that they can be better. Don't tell them that they're bad. Hemidu. Uplift. Talmidim. Have students. Have disciples. Have students. What means you should have students? That means they want to be your students. There's no forced student situation. They want to be a student. People should want to learn from you. When you say you should be a light unto the nations, that means the nations want to follow the light. You can't force anybody to be your student. You need to, that they want to learn from you. Be an example that they want to learn from. And harbe means many. The Mishnah that Rebbe says is so fascinating that it says they use the word harbe many. What's many? How much is many? Can you give a number to many? If you have 10,000 students, is that considered many? You can have 1,000,000 students. What is considered many? Many is unlimited. Have many students. What's the number? As much as you can have. The more students you can have, you can have. Rabbi Label Wolf was by us for Shabbos this year. He came to the Rebbe, and he was not planning to go out and reach out to students, to Jews. And the Rebbe told him to go out and reach out to Jews. And he said, I am not capable of doing that. And the Rebbe told him, can you teach a student the letter Aleph? He said the story. Can you teach a student an Aleph? So he said, sure, I can teach people the letter Aleph. What's the letter Aleph base? I can teach them the Aleph base. So go out and teach them Aleph base. There are enough students out there that can learn Aleph base. There's enough for each and every one of us to have many students. And don't be cheap on the students. Don't say, I have acquired 10 people. I've acquired 10 students. I've already acquired many. No, because many is no limit to the word many. So therefore, these sages said, listen, you cannot be judgmental and have students. You cannot, have students, you need to be uplifting. And then you should be so uplifting that you should have many students. But never, never bring down the Torah. The trick is that you always keep the Torah the way it should be. Never bring down the Torah. Never say, you know what? Since I'm not going to use my talent to bring Jews to the Torah, I'm going to bring the Torah to the Jews. I'm going to diminish the Torah. I'm going to say that you're going to be laxing on the Torah and find loopholes in the Torah to bring Jews to the Torah. No. As you make a protective fence around the Torah. Because once we break the Torah, then that's not good. Chas v'shalom, should we say, God forbid, we should say, you know what? Let us diminish the Torah to have more students. No. The Torah is nitzchis. The Torah is everlasting. And therefore you have to know that even if the Torah is pristine and everlasting and stays the way it is, you can still have patience, you could still have a lot of students, and you could still be an uplifting individual. Because the Torah actually, the ways of the Torah are peaceful and tranquil, and you have to show another person the beauty of the Torah. So that's the first Mishnah. We finished the first Mishnah. The second Mishnah, Shimon HaTzadik HaYayim. Now the truth is, in Perkia Avot, there are hundreds, thousands of commentators on every Mishnah. And we can be on every Mishnah for a week. But we're never going to finish the Perkia Avot. So if you have any questions, you can type it in and ask me a question, and I'll get you the answer. But hopefully that you're following along. Okay, let's go weiter. Let's further. The second Mishnah. Shimon HaTzadik Haya Meshi'irei Knes HaGdela. Shimon, the righteous, was from the last ones of the Anshe Knes HaGdela. Shimon HaTzadik was a very famous guy. Very famous tzaddik. He was a kohen gadol. He was a high priest, and he met Alexander the Great. That's what the Gemara says. He met Alexander the Great. Alexander came to Eretz Yisrael to conquer Yerushalayim, and Shimon HaTzadik came out to greet him. And Alexander, the Gemara says, Alexander got off his horse and kneeled before this Shimon HaTzadik, before the Kohen Gadol. And the Gemara, the Talmud says that one of his generals told him, why are you doing this to this elderly rabbi? And he said that in every war I go out, I see the image of this rabbi, and he helps me to be victorious in my wars. That's what he answered. And because of Shimon HaTzadik, Alexander the Great did not conquer Yerushalayim, not destroy it. He left it alone. And that's one of the stories of Shimon HaTzadik and Alexander the Great. That's why one of the reasons why Alexander, the story the Gemara says Alexander wanted to bring a carbon, and Shimon didn't accept it, and he sent back. He said, "I'm going to give you a greater present, and my present's going to be that I'm going to tell the Jews to name their name. They can name their children after you." And that's when Alexander became a Jewish name. Because Shimon HaTzadik told Jews to name their kids Alexander. And Alexander, from then on, became a Jewish name, Alexander. I don't know about Alexander the Great, but Alexander. So Shimon HaTzadik, he was a Kohen Gadol for 40 years in the Beis HaMikdash. He was a Kohen Gadol. In those days, sometimes the Kehanim, Gedolim even were not were Sadducees, as we know. The second temple, the Gemara says there was many Kehanim Gedolim because they didn't survive the year. They died every Yom Kippur. Every Yom Kippur, they died because they used to pay the government to get into the job. And they used to die. The Rebbe actually spoke about this. He spoke about the Latoiv. He spoke about this to the good, that they were willing to be Mesa Nefesh because they knew they might not be able to survive the year. They're going to go into the Yom Kippur, into the Holy of Holies, and they're going to pass away there. So they used to tie a string to the bottom of the leg of the Kohen Gadol, and if he died in the Holy of Holies, they used to slap him out. But Shimon was 40 years a Kohen Gadol because he was a tzaddik. And it says, it's brought down in the Gemara, at the time of Shimon, a tzaddik, there was never a rainbow seen in Eretz Yisrael. He was such a tzaddik, and he was such a righteous entity to the Jewish people, that there was not a rainbow. A rainbow is that God needs to remember not to destroy the world. So there was never a rainbow because of this tzaddik that the Jewish people had in their midst. So Shimon HaTzadik came, and Shimon HaTzadik said, Shimon HaTzadik was the last ones of the great rabbis of the Great Assembly. He would say, the world stands on three things. That means the world was created for three things. Now, the truth is, we know, Chassidus says that the world was created because the Sava Kadosh Baruch Hu that the reason why the world was created was because God had a wish to have a dwelling place in this world. So what is the meaning of Shimon HaTzadik? Shimon HaTzadik is telling us how to accomplish this concept of bringing God to the world. If that is the purpose of the world, is that God should dwell in this world, so how do I do that? How do I accomplish that concept? So Shimon HaTzadik says you accomplish the three things, because they are the pillars what brings godliness to the world. And what are those three pillars? Ala Torah, and the learning of Torah. Learning of Torah. We should not only realize, in essence, the Torah, Shimon HaTzadik doesn't tell us that we should learn Torah, because that we know, it says in the Torah itself, you shall learn Torah by day and by night. But that it's a pillar of the world. We shouldn't only learn Torah because it's a mitzvah, only because that's the mitzvah. But we should realize that it's the pillar, it's what holds the whole world, it's what holds the world together. And when we say in general, we should know in general, when the Mishnah talks about, pillars of the world, there's the world, there's the big world, and there's a small world. Because the Gemara says that every human being is a small world. Everything that's in the world, as Chassidus explains even more, that the world was created 10 utterances, and every human being is created by 10 utterances. We are a reflection of the world. We are a reflection of the temple. We are a reflection of the world. That's what we say, B'shvili nivra olam. The Mishnah later will say that every person has to say the whole world was created for me. Because in essence, we are the world. Isn't it a song? We are the world. We are the world. We are the world. So therefore, our world, my world, needs to have 3 pillars. My world needs 3 pillars. The first of my world pillar is I got to realize that I need the concept of Torah, the aspect of learning Torah. And it's a pillar of my world. And the truth is, if I don't learn Torah, then my pillar is shaking. The expression that Rebbe would say, the Welt schakkelt sich. The world is shaking. The world is shaking because it's missing in the pillars of the world. So when my world is shaking, because I'm missing in the pillars, in what my world stands on. My world stands on the learning of Torah. My world stands on avodah, service of God, prayer. It could be some commentators translate this as the concept of prayer, and on gemilas chasadim, on the acts of kindness. Truth is that these 3 things is symbolic in the 3 patriarchs. They are called the patriarchs of the world. They are called our patriarchs: Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avram is gemilas chasadim. Yitzchak is the concept of gevura, avoida, service, and Yaakov is midas shalemes. Yaakov is the third, is the attribute of Teferes, the attribute of truth, which is a concept of Torah. So you have it actually over here, the Mishnah goes the other way. Even though Avram was first, and Yitzchak was second, and Yaakov was last, the Mishnah flips it over. And he puts Yaakov in first. Because before the creation, before the giving of the Torah, you have Gemilas Chasadim is first. Avram Avinu came first. But after the giving of the Torah, now everything needs to go through Torah. Even my Gemilas Chasadim, even my acts of kindness needs to be done according to the Torah. What the Torah says should be an act of kindness. The laws of acts of kindness. The laws of charity. And surely my Gevura, my Avodah, should go through the concept of Torah. So in general, Chassidus says there are three very important pillars. We all know the concept of learning Torah, the aspect of davening. These are generally 2 things. The concept of Torah is chesed. You can also translate it that way. The concept of Torah is chesed because Torah comes from the heaven, from the Eibishter, from God. It's a kindness, it's a matana. We say a blessing of a Torah that God gave us a Torah. So it's an aspect of a matana, of a gift. Prayer is avodah. Prayer is hard work. It's the work of the mata. It's the work of the Jew to pray, to ask, to praise. And then the third pillar is Gemilas Chasadim, the aspect of kindness, the concept of charity. In the simple concept, the concept of charity, that I take my Torah, my Avodah, and I bring it out into Maaseh B'Poel. I bring it out into action. That's why it could be that in the Alter Rebbe says the Alter Rebbe says the same thing. The levushim, the garments of the soul is machshava, dibra, Maaseh. Thought, which is the concept of Torah. Speech, which is the concept of tefillah. You have to daven when you pray. You have to hear the words of You had machshava, dibur, ma'aser, the aspect of ma'aser, which is the concept, which Chassidus says in general. Tanya, you learn Tanya says that all mitzvahs are the concept of tzedakah, is the aspect of act of charity. Whether it's in the concept of the act of charity to somebody else, or it's an act of charity to my soul or to God, it's a concept of that's symbolic in the aspect of avodah, in the aspect of service. So here we have these three pillars in life. This is what Shimon taught us, that these are the three things we need to do. Okay, number 3. The Mishnah number 3. Antigonus ish Seichen. Antigonus, the student of Kibel Shimon Tzadik, he was one of the students of Shimon Tzadik, and he received him, Antigonus. He said, this is a very interesting statement. He said, don't be like servants who serve their master for the sake of receiving a reward. That means even though, Antigonus says, that the Torah it says the concept of reward, that if you follow the Torah mitzvah, I will give you a reward, but that should not be the ultimate reason. The ultimate reason should be you should be like servants to serve the Eibishter, not for the sake of receiving a reward, because that's what the Eibishter wants you to do. That's what God wants you to do. There's a story, a beautiful story, that the Baal Shem Tov said. The Baal Shem Tov once said, I'm going to introduce you, I'm going to tell you where my neshama comes from. and they went into a vision, and they saw hundreds of years, they saw that they were suddenly in Tzfas, and they saw that this elderly Jew in Tzfas, a simple Jew, pious Jew, and the Baal Shem Tov said that that's my neshama. And what happened to this Jew? What was so special about this Jew? So the story is told that one day this Jew got a knock at the door, and at the door was Elijah the prophet. Baal Shem Tov told the story. And Elijah the prophet asked the Jew to come in, and the Jew invited him in, self-understood, and gave him to eat. And then he told him, I'm Eliyahu Navi. So the guy said, why do I have the honor to have Eliyahu Navi? I'm a simple Jew. And Eliyahu Navi said, because in heaven, on the day of your bar mitzvah, you did something. And it was such a great light that you did in heaven, that we want to know what you did on your day of bar mitzvah. And I was sent down from heaven to find out what you did on the day of bar mitzvah. So please tell me what you did on the day of bar mitzvah. So the man, it was not a bar mitzvah, but he was an elderly man, he said, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what you did on your bar mitzvah. To me and HaKadosh Baruch, me and God. So Eliyahu Navi said, I see you don't realize who you're talking to. I'm Eliyahu Navi. And I can reward you with an unbelievable reward. I'm going to give you an unbelievable reward. If you tell me what you did on the day of bar mitzvah, I'm going to give you the greatest, deepest knowledge of the Torah. I'm going to teach you the most deepest contemplations and meditations. I'm going to teach you the Zohar. I'm going to teach you the most secrets of secrets. And you're going to become one of the greatest sages of all time. If you only tell me what you did on your day of the bar mitzvah. So the Jew said, Eliyahu Navi, thank you, but no thank you. Because I did what I did not for the sake of a reward. I did what I did on my day of my bar mitzvah because I did it for God. And now you try to give me a reward for it. I didn't do it for the sake of a reward. And therefore I cannot tell you. The Baal Shem Tov said that this neshama, his reward was that he came down into the guf of the Baal Shem Tov. He came down and came to Baal Shem Tov. Ultimately got that reward. But there was one expression Baal Shem Tov said, that's why one of the aspects maybe that Baal Shem Tov loved Anashim Shutim, because we don't know the greatness of Anashim Shutim. that a person does something, not for any concept of reward and punishment. The Baal Shem Tov once said that when Mashiach comes, we're going to reveal the greatness of simple people. Why? Because simple Jews throughout history did Torah mitzvahs and did what they were supposed to do, not because of great understanding. And many of them didn't see any rewards. And many of them didn't see any great concepts. Not physically, not spiritually. But they did it l'shem shamayim. They did it because they were Yidden. They were Jews. They didn't do it for any reward. They received the ultimate reward. Therefore, Antigonus Yisaicha says, my friends, even though the Eibusher promises you a reward and gives you rewards, but you should do a mitzvah because you should want to do God's will. Why should you want to have? It's asked, why does the Torah tell us that I'm going to receive all these rewards? It's because simply I want to have an easier life, so I'm about to do more Torah mitzvahs. If I had a struggle in life, and I had unhappiness in life, and I had unsuccess in life, it would be very difficult for me to do Torah mitzvahs. So I want to have a successful life. I want to have a healthy life. Why do I want to have a healthy life or a successful life? So I can be able to do more good. Not because I need the only person, the concept, I'm a good person, I need to get goodness in this world. No. The more good I'm given in the world, the more I can do good. This expression of the Perkia Avot, they say, who said a small hole in the body is a big hole in the soul. If there's a small hole in the body, which means that my body is not healthy, then I cannot live the life of the soul. So therefore, I'm healthy because I want to live like a Jew, and it makes me easier, and it gives me more koyach, and it gives me more capability to do my avodah, my service of God. But what am I doing the service of God? Because that's what God wants me to do. Not because I'm going to get better, I'm going to get more money, I'm going to get less money, or I'm going to get Gan Eden. There's a very famous expression of the Alter Rebbe who would sing, Ich will nicht dein Gan Eden, ich will nicht dein Olam Hazeh. I don't want any of your promises of rewards. Ich will dir allein. I want you. So what do you promise me, Gan Eden? I don't want Gan Eden. Sure, I'm going to get Gan Eden, but that's not what I want. I want you. I want a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That should be the most important thing that a person does, and that should be what a person strives for. And that's what we all can, in essence, Antigonus Yisaicha says we can all thrive for that kind of situation. We can all be a person that thrives for constant godliness. And then what will happen? Then the fear of God. If we go and we reach out to do our service of God because of the sake of God, then God will shine upon himself upon us. Because that's the expression, Kemayim upon him. That's expression as the way the water, the face is seen in the water. The way we express ourselves to God is the way God expresses himself back to us. So the way we reach out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way we reach out to God, that we are servicing God because we love him, so God loves us. Not because of what we do, because who we are. As the Gemara says, when a Jew puts on tefillin, the Eibusher puts on tefillin. The Gemara asks the question, tefillin devara al maksibu. What is written in God's tefillin? So in tefillin of a Jew, what's written? V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, I love the Eibusher. And then the same thing is written in a tefillin. The same thing is written in the tefillin of God. The tefillin of B'yikam Chizah, I love the Jewish nation. So a Jew puts on tefillin and expresses love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, love to God. The Eibusher expresses it back to him, I love you. So therefore, if we can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we can serve God because we love the Eibusher, not because what we're going to get or not going to get. If we're going to serve God because what we get, then we're asking for pennies. Then we could get big and we're asking for small. If God loves us, he'll surely reward us. If the Eibusher wants us to love him, then He'll give us more capabilities. There's an expression in the Gemara. The Gemara is when a Jew says, I'm happy, God says, that is happiness. I'll show you what really happiness is. So when a Jew shows that he's happy, he says, I'll show you what really happiness is. That's nothing. I'll give you even more happiness. The Gemara even says in a negative way, if a person kvetches, the Eibush says, oh, you're kvetching, I'll show you what kvetching is. I'll show you what pain, what true pain and suffering is. So we should surely express ourselves in positive. We should say we should love the Eibush, we should serve God because we want to serve Him and want to connect with Him. And you'll have automatically the fear of heaven upon you. You'll automatically have God's presence with you, which brings about Yirah Shamayim, the awe of heaven. You'll have the awe of heaven. Because if you learn the Maimer, the difference between Yirah Tata and Yirah Ilah, the fear, a lower level of fear that I'm afraid of punishment, because everything is reward and punishment. So then I have reward and punishment. But I want to have higher than reward. I'm not the reward and punishment. I want to have the concept of a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want a concept of a relationship with God. And it's which is Yirah Ilah, which brings about a concept of awe of God. That's Yirah Ilah, the aspect of awness of God. Not I'm afraid of Gehenim. I'm afraid of a punishment. I'm in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The more I love the Eibishter, the more I'm in awe of God, brings about the awness of God upon me. And that finishes the third Mishnah in Perkia Avot. And we shall continue in Midat Shem next week. It's great to learn. And it's great to learn with you guys in general. In Midat Shem, we will learn together face to face. Have a wonderful and a beautiful night.